I want to welcome everybody today for our webinar, which is a tour of the PVBS Nav product, which is a Microsoft-based product that is DCAA compliant. First, a little bit about us. The presenting this is the company ReliAscent. We are a consulting firm that specializes in helping small businesses with accounting and contract management issues. So we are sponsoring the webinar, but actually one of our partners from Pleasant Valley Business Systems, Bill Jones, is going to help us by discussing an overview of the PVBS system. And PVBS was founded in 2002, but they are a Microsoft partner that has modified the Microsoft NAV program to be DCAA compliant. It's one of the few DCAA compliant softwares out of the box, and it also has a very friendly feel to anybody that's used Microsoft products. So with that, I want to introduce Bill Jones, and we can do an overview of the system.
Dashboard reporting views that come with our solution. So on the top left, I have the income statement by job. So we use the Microsoft technology inside Microsoft Excel using slicers and analysis services to pull data into dashboard type reports that you can quickly filter. So right now I'm running this for one particular job, for a particular month, for a particular year. If I needed to, I could click on a particular job and that would refresh my screen for me. So managers, executives, C-level type people can have access to financial information without having to access the accounting system. It gives them information. So for a project manager, you might want to see a burn rate report. So over on the right-hand side, I have a little widget that gives me, how I'm running through my funding each month. And obviously, if I'm still in the yellow, I'm still okay. But once I get into the red, orange area, it knows I'm burning through funding faster than I need to. So right now, if I'm looking at my burn rate, I have 9.5 months of funding left based upon my current burn rate. So all the different dashboard reports come with our business analytics solutions. So we have our labor detail analysis charts. So we're using all the Microsoft charts to show this information in the different graphs. So here's our GL detail report that shows different information by direct costs. So your percent January, February, March for direct labor, subcontract labor, etc. And then here, same concept, I'm able to quickly change the job I'm looking at to see where I'm spending. I get drill down capabilities as well when I click on the top section as well. Oops. These are all part of the solution with the analytics. We also have some indirect rate details information. So over on the right-hand side, I have a quick graph to show my indirect rate for fringe and how it's trending. So I can see what my pool is, what my fringe rate actual is, and these are spark lines built inside Microsoft Excel to give you a quick graphical view of a particular cell inside that. So here I'm looking at my indirect rates for January and in the year 2010. I have current period and year to date. If I had a budget, my budget would populate inside there. I can see what my fringe pool rate, my actual rate is. So here I can quickly see what my actual rate is burning at versus what I budget or my targeted provisional rate is. Same thing for my overhead pool and my G&A pool. And if you had some material handling pool, such as I have down below here, there's my sub-material handling pool and what my expected target rate is for my sub-material handling pool. So these are the dashboard views that come with the analytics system that's built directly into Microsoft Excel. We use analysis services to feed the information, so it makes it much easier for executives, people who are out in the field, to get access to information. And these views are customizable, so if you guys have different types of key performance indicators you need to track, you can set them up in a dashboard view. And part of the training is we teach you how to customize and modify those views. So I clicked over. Now we're looking at the home screen in Microsoft Dynamics NAV. So on the inside the role center, I'm logged in as a project manager. So inside my project manager role, I have some quick fact boxes. So here I see I have 5 invoices created, 5 invoices that are due, not created. I see I have expense reports that are not processed. So with these, I can actually drill down and go into the detail to see what information that is. I click back and I'm back on my home screen. Very similar to like the Microsoft solutions, you have a ribbon similar to like a Microsoft Excel. The ribbons are customizable, so I can quickly jump to key reports that I use. I can quickly jump back to, if I need to jump to job categories or subcontracts, I can quickly jump from my role center into different areas of NAV. Over on the right-hand side, I have some jobs that I'm managing, so if I wanted to click on a particular job, I can just double click or click the open, and that will launch my job menu. So the idea of the role center, it puts your workflow directly inside. All the areas of the accounting system that you're going to need to access can be accessed from one central screen. Obviously, Microsoft NAV has multiple modules. We have financial management, which would include general ledger, cash management, the cost accounting, cash flow, receivables, payables, fixed assets. It has inventory. It has a sales order module, purchase orders. We have a requisition module, warehousing, manufacturing, and then we have the project accounting module. Okay. Back on my home screen, I also have what's called a job queue. So you can actually have the system queue job reports, or any reports in NAV can be queued up to be run through an automatic scheduler routine. So every Monday, if you want to get your job status report, so I can have my job status report to be queued, and then from there it would launch that report in my role center when I log in based on that whenever I specify it to run. I also can put fact boxes in here, so I have purchase order per status. So here I see I have 3 open purchase orders that are not released. That means they have not been sent to the vendor. I have 9 purchase orders that have been released and been sent to the vendor. We also have a notification mechanism, so people can send notifications inside NAV. If somebody has a question on job funding, they can send a note to somebody inside the accounting system to look at, and they have the capabilities to click on it, and it would launch that job record for them. It also has integration with Microsoft Outlook. I can see calendar task. If I had email notices set to show up in there, I can actually group them by my vendors and so forth. So it has all the integration capabilities with the Microsoft stack solutions. I'm just going to click on a job card and open up a job record. So here I'm looking at my acoustic kitty. It's job number 1002. The client that we're doing the work for is Department of Defense. With NAV, you can have a different paying office, and you can have a different contracting office. We have different job types, so in this case it's a firm fixed price, but I could have a cost plus award fee, cost plus incentive fee, T&M, all the different types of job, level of effort jobs. So these are all user definable. So you can actually, as the government is changing the way they're issuing contracts and they're coming up with these hybrid type contracts, we can adapt to how they're issuing the contracts. We track the period of performance on a contract, and then we'll see at the lower level we can actually have period of performance down at the task level. Over on the right-hand side, I have some key information. I see how much my job is contracted for and how much I'm funded for. So with that, you have the capabilities. You can actually drill down, and I can see all the mod details for this. So I see I'm up through 6 mods for the different task orders, and when the starting date of and how much each mod was for. Same thing on the contract amount. I can drill down on the contract amount to see the details that make up that contract value. I see that I have $2,200 in revenue. I have $8,000 in cost. I can see how much direct labor hours I have, what my AR balance is, and how much I have in billings for this. With that, I can actually click down on my AR balance, and it's going to bring me up the open entries. Microsoft will highlight the lines and bold them in red and change the font to italicize it for you, showing you that it's overdue. So these invoices were due in 2013, 2014, etc. So these are past due invoices. direct labor hours, I can drill down on that. It's going to take me to the details with that. Now, with Microsoft NAV, it's fully integrated with the Excel product. So here I can actually go up to my send, click Microsoft Excel, and what's going to happen, it's going to launch Microsoft Excel, and here's the job ledger entries for me. And notice it puts the job filters in automatically. So if I wanted to do a particular task order filter, so now I'm filtering just on one task order. I could have done that same filter inside NAV just by clicking on it, right-clicking, and filtering this value. So now I'm looking at one job, one particular task order's labor entries. And then from there I can send it to Excel. If I want to chart it, I can show it as a chart, etc. So there's multiple ways you can access information inside NAV, and using the Microsoft Excel tool, the Send to Excel tool, it makes it very easy to research and get around the system and so forth. So we also have the commitments. So here I'm showing how much commitments. So as purchase orders are put against a project, we're going to track the dollar amount that's committed or obligated to that particular project. We can handle multi-year pricing up in our job resource pricing. We can also track different labor categories for people. So in our resource price screen, if this was a T&M project, I can have an effective date pricing. So if I had the same, and let's say I had effective date on 01 of 14, and let's say it was $17 an hour. So somebody doesn't have to remember on the 14th or January 1st of 2014 to come in there and change the rate to be $17 for my technical support person. It would automatically kick in once that date is effective, or once that date is reached. We also have work breakdown structure. So very similar to like Microsoft Project. So here I can actually look at my tree, expand my tree out, and here I can put subcomponents. So here I have requirements. With my requirements, let's say requirements is a fixed price, I can actually change the task type to be a different type. I can have it set to be cost type, T&M, etc. So when you get into these hybrid, IDIQ contracts, when you're getting delivery orders that have different types, you have the capabilities at the work breakdown structure level, work WBS level as we call it, to have different types of different types of task orders and so forth. I can also track a period of performance inside here based upon my start and end dates. So this would override the jobs period of performance, and I can also assign a task manager. So at the project level, you can have a project manager, but on the WBS, you can actually have an additional task manager. And that's useful when you get into reporting and also from a time approval if you want to set people to approve time. We have CLIN tracking. We also have ACRN tracking. You have the capabilities to suppress WBS codes for timesheets, for expense reports. We have a membership who can charge to it, and inside the membership you can actually set durations. So here I'm seeing if Mark Lahart can charge to this job on this WBS, but he's only granted for 15 days in March of 2014. So it allows you to actually restrict people by job, by task, and also by date. By default, the period of performance will factor in. So if the period of performance has not been met, and then it will check the visible from and the visible to make sure the person's in line with the whatever date parameters. We also have an approval mechanism. So if you think about, a lot of organizations have a just a supervisor level approval, but with NAV you can actually specify multi-level approval at the WBS level. So you don't have to. You can have like an organizational-wide approval, but for certain WBS or certain jobs, you might need a project manager and a task manager to approve it, or maybe you want the task manager and a divisional admin. I have clients that will utilize this when they get into like B&P work, where they want the the person that's running the B&P project to approve all the work being done on it, but they still want their supervisor to approve their time as well. So you have multiple types of approvals you can work with, and there's also the same concept is with expense report and also with requisition approval. Similar to what I showed earlier, we have our modification detail. So for this one particular WBS, we have our initial funding of the $50,000 or $30,000, and then we had a mod for travel expenses. for 7,500. So this will keep a history of all the mods and changes being tracked to a particular WBS code. So the WBS structure is very similar to like a Microsoft project. We do have integration with MS Project, either the enterprise version or the client version. We also have on the Actions tab of the job, we have what's called alerts. So here you can actually be proactive in sending notices out to project managers and task managers. They don't have to rely on accounting to send them information of when a contract's nearing a certain % of funding or based upon budget. So in this example, I have, based on my funded amount, I'm going to send an email notice at 60%, 75%, and at 90%. It's going to my project manager. I can also add an additional person to this email, and they would get a notice as well as additional email, and you can do multiple people for that. So it allows you to send notices out to project managers based upon a budget or a funded amount at different thresholds. So if once we hit 60% of the funded amount, I'm going to send a note out to John or Jay Klein, letting him know that his project is, hit the 60% mark, and if it hits the 75% mark, he's going to get a notice that it hit the 75% mark, and so forth and so forth. Nav has capabilities for budgeted rates. We also have different pool concepts. So if you guys had a complex pool structure, or the government's issued you a contract that doesn't follow your company-wide pool structure, you're capable of setting up different pools at the contract level. So here, in this case, I have a company-wide pool, but you could have a, no G&A being allowed on travel. So the government's getting creative on how they're issuing awards, and being flexible and scalable, we have a billing pool group that allows you to adapt how you need to build a contract. Your accumulation of cost is still done through your company-wide pool structure, but this allows you to meet the billing requirements that the government's issuing to you. Staying on the job card, we have our invoice proposals. We also have our posted invoices. So there's an automated function that will create your invoices based upon your costs or your T&M bill rates, and that will create a proposal for you. The T&M proposal, and then from here you can actually print a pre-invoice document. It's going to tell you what you're funded for, how much funding is remaining. It's going to list out the detail that you're billing the government for, and so forth. Same concept. After you post the document, it becomes a posted invoice, and with the posted invoice, we can do a 1034, 1035 document for it. We can also print a GC invoice for that as well. Nav does have integration with SharePoint, so if you want your project managers to approve the invoice proposals, you can send a notice to them through SharePoint that they need to go in, and they would log in. They would get an email to log into SharePoint, and they would approve it, and once it's approved, you would process it into a posted invoice. You would get a notice back that the invoice has been approved. So that's the job card inside Nav. I'm going to jump over to the financials. So Nav's financials, the way we break out our costs just from a best practice standpoint, so we have our 1 series being your assets, 2 liabilities, 3 equity, and 4 being revenue. Our 5 are going to be our direct cost range. So here I'm breaking out my direct labor, full-time, part-time. Nav will keep a running trial balance for you directly inside the chart of account screen. You have the capabilities to set filters, so I can actually limit data for a particular net change column. So if I want to look at the net change, so if I drill down on my net change column, it's showing me all the transactional detail. But let's say I just want to see my transactions as of October of 2013, which is what my demo data has. So in Nav, you can type, you don't have to type in the slashes or dashes for the dates. Once I click off, notice the change. My direct labor now is down to 19,422, and if I drill down on that, I'm only looking at October transactions. Same concept. You can export that to send it to Excel, do more analysis on those type of transactions. I also have the capabilities if I want to look at a particular job. So let's say I want to only view information for job 1004. So now I'm looking at all my direct labor in October of 1004. So what the chart of accounts, it's a tool that's utilized to, it's not just a strict, account number and name. It allows you to access information, view information, and do analysis on that information. So when I drill down on my net change, I'm seeing the detail just for that job, just for October of 2013. I clear my filters, and now I'm back to my full unfiltered chart of accounts. You also have a Navigate feature inside Nav. So if I want to go back for this particular invoice, I'm looking at a travel account, and I'm concerned that this amount is in the wrong account. So I want to navigate back to the source transaction. So what Microsoft Nav will do, it will take you back to all the documents associated with that. So then from here I can click my show, and here I see who the vendor was, the date of the transaction, what their vendor invoice number was, and so forth. So you have the capabilities of navigating from a source transaction to the general ledger, or from the general ledger back to the source transaction. So if it came from labor, I'd be able to navigate back to an employee's timesheet. So it gives you that full audit trail of a transaction. I'm going to jump now. So that's the core chart of accounts. It gives you the drill down capabilities, fully integrated with Excel, and it gives you that complete audit trail back to the source transaction. We track who posted it, the date of the transaction, and so forth. Now security is going to limit who can go in and view that type of information, so Nav does have a full security module as well. So I'm going to go over to Timesheets and go through our timesheet module now. So I'm logged in as Josh Klein. So Josh is a project manager on one of my projects. So here I'm looking at Josh's timesheet. So our timesheet's very easy to use based upon the amount of space you might have on if you're using a tablet, or if you're using an iPod. I might need to condense down my view to give me more screen space. So over here I'm seeing my project that I'm putting time against. I see I have 40 hours already assigned to this. So it's in the draft state. That means I can still make changes to it. So if I want to add 2 hours to a particular day, I can enter that. If I want to enter a comment, and those comments now, if I hover over it, I see that there's a comment on there. It puts a little hashtag there showing that it has a comment for you. As I enter my time, up top I have my PTO balance. I can also do a PTO request from the screen as well. So if I want to check Josh's PTO balance, I can click on that. You do have the capabilities to enter time on behalf of somebody. So if somebody is traveling and they've granted you access to enter time on their behalf, you have the capabilities on enter time on behalf of somebody. It would give you a list of people that granted you access. They still need to go in and approve the time once they come back from their travel or wherever they were, so forth. So if I want to add a new line to my timesheet, we have a wizard that will walk you through entering the line. So here I'm going to select the jobs. Only the jobs I have access to will show up on here. And same thing with the WBS codes. I can specify if I'm charging at different labor categories. A lot of small companies might wear many hats when they're working on a project. So instead of a project manager, I did some senior development. So I'm going to click Save. So it just added that line for me, and then I can enter new information pertaining to that particular line. I save my timesheet. Once it's the end of the pay period, I would go in and click my Submit for the time. under the approval screen, so Josh has approval access. So approvals are going to store both our time, expenses, requisitions, and if I had any open PTO requests, they would show up inside there as well. So here, if I click on Andrew's time, so I see up top, Andrew's entered 88 hours. His status has been submitted. So with that, I can go in and approve or reject his time as needed. I can also improve on behalf of somebody. So if one of my colleagues said, if they're like, let's say that, you know, they're traveling, they don't have access, or they're on vacation, they don't have access to approve their timesheets, so they've asked you to approve their timesheets. So I can actually approve on behalf of somebody. This would give me a list of all the people that have granted me access to approve on their behalf, and then I would be approving on somebody else's behalf once I click that. I click on my next timesheet, and I go through the next steps for the timesheet cycle. I click approve, and that will basically take that into the approval state for me. Expense reports, so we do have a full expense report module. So if I wanted to create a new expense report, I'm just going to click my travel to Texas expense report. So it gives you a total amount of your expense report on the top. If I had any per diem, I can use the per diem wizard to select my per diem. Any type of attachments can be uploaded. So I can drag and drop drag and drop receipts onto my screen here, click OK, and that will save that attachment for me. My project manager will be able to hover over the attachment, and it will give them a view of the attachment in the approval screen. So I have the paid by, so you can do company paid. You can also do employee paid, and if it's employee or company paid, non-reimbursable, that would deduct it from the employee's expense check. Same concept, you would do your save, and then you would click submit. So I'm still in the draft stage, so I can actually make changes to this. If I need to enter a comment, I would hit save, and then I would submit my expense report, and that will submit the expense report. And once it's submitted, whoever's approving my expense report, they would see the expense reports showing up inside the expense approval screen. So from a usability, the expense report is very easy to use. Training for this takes very little time. Anybody that's run electronic expense reports today, they adapted very quickly. So it's a very nice, easy to use system from an expense and time entry tracking. All right. So my last part I'm going to cover is around our cost pool structure and setup. So I'm going to go back to my project accounting, and we'll talk about the cost pools. Just real quick, send out a poll of how many clients out there do, you know, the ICE schedule. How many are doing it in-house, or how many are having external consultants supply it for them.
Yeah, we'll take just a couple minutes, Bill, and let people fill that in. And okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and close that down now. And the responses were kind of 50-50. 50% said, yes, I do have a incurred cost submission due this year, and the other half said, not sure if they have to do one or not. But there were no negative responses. So looks like we're all kind of in that category of, yeah, maybe we have to do one.
All right, so I clicked on my cost pool. So Nav has the capability of setting up intermediate and final cost pools. Intermediate, think of it as a service center. You might have a facility. Intermediate pool, you might have, like, some clients do like IT, HR. So there's no limit on the number of pools you can specify inside Nav. I'm inside my cost pool screen. So the cost pool, so we're going to have a pool and base. So you see it says fringe. So this is my fringe. So fringe is based on all labor, and it's using my direct labor, overhead labor, G&A labor. If I had unallowable labor, that would be in there as well. So each of these account sets have what's called a GL account associated with them. So if I click Advanced and I look at my direct labor, click Details, it's basically saying, all right, here's my range of accounts I'm looking at. So it's grabbing my direct labor range, and it's also grabbing my B&P and IR&D labor range. And that's what it's including in the direct labor. And it's doing the same thing for overhead, G&A, and so forth. So we calculate, so think of the pool, we're calculating the numerator and denominator, and we're coming up with a rate. So we're looking at the chart of accounts based upon how we specified our accounts. So we'll have a fringe section, and then it's grabbing my direct labor, overhead labor, and G&A labor to calculate what my fringe rate is. Then it's allocating that rate to my project. So it's allocating it to direct labor, to overhead labor, G&A labor, and so forth. We also have the incurred cost schedule as well included up top here. So if we ran my incurred cost schedule, we do A through H. I'm not going to go through the steps of this because it takes a few minutes to run. So basically you tell it your fiscal year ending month, and it asks you a couple questions about does overhead base include fringe, does G&A base include ODC, and then if you have a material handling pool, you ask a couple questions. There's a function to prepare the schedules, and we actually export that to into Excel, and we build the A through H schedule using using Excel with based on our cost pool structure inside Nav.
Now,
Okay.
Bill, a question that came up is, are those Excel documents for A through H, are they compatible with the DCAA's ICE model?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so that it's generating A through H in accordance with the DCAA ICE model automatically from the program then.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, our next thing, we're working on contract briefs, so we hope to have that done probably in the next quarter or so, and Schedule I, which is a little more complicated. But so let's go. So we have basically our statement of indirects. So here I have my fringe. So we use what's called account schedules to help you tie out your pools. There's an overview mechanism. So here I'm looking at my fringe pool for Q1 of 2013. So it's basically giving you what your pool accounts are. It's giving you what your total fringe benefits were. It's giving you current period year to date, and then it's giving you what your base for the pool is, and then it's calculating what's your fringe rate. With the overview inside Nav, so if you have a question on the, let's say, dental insurance that looks high, so I can actually drill down into the details, and it's going to bring up the transaction. So here, if I wanted to navigate, I can actually navigate. So as you're verifying your pools, making sure your rates are correct and so forth, you have the capabilities to drill down into the detail directly inside the statement of indirects. Same concept, it has an export to Excel function. You can also print this out on hard copy paper as well. So here, if I wanted to change my pool, let's say I want to look at my G&A rate. So now I'm looking at my G&A rate. So I have a 23% and a year to date. So here, if I see costs, like my other direct costs is kind of high, it's 50% in this first quarter. So then I can actually drill down. You also have the capabilities to flip to do a month view. So now I'm looking at the month. So here I can actually start trending. So if I go back, all right, I was at 38% for February, and I was at 5% for January. So I might have some January costs that are inside my month of February. So I have the capabilities. If you notice up top, it's changing my dates here just by going through the different periods. So we have all the different schedules inside here. So we have our fringe, overhead, all the different rates are specified inside there. All right, so we can go in more detail in a separate demo around, how the incurred cost schedule works and how it integrates, how we use Excel to build it and so forth. That's a high-level overview of how the pools work and how you verify the pools using the account schedule tool. So I guess the final thing is just to go through, kind of recap. So Microsoft Nav is very similar to other Microsoft products. It's integrated with all the Microsoft solutions, the SharePoint, Microsoft CRM, Microsoft Project, all the Microsoft Office tools as well. So we're looking at the 2015 version of Microsoft Nav. It's very customizable. You guys can customize it based upon your user's role. I'm logged in as a project manager, but there's about 35 different roles within Microsoft Nav. So if I was a AP clerk, I can have my own AP clerk role. If I was a purchase order manager, I can have my own. They have their own role already specified for that, so they're not going to see all the project information and so forth. If I'm a GL accountant, I might have a different role. So the roles allows the user to do their work in a more efficient, easier environment. So I guess the last poll I just wanted to do is around system requirements pertaining to a new ERP system, such as if you have like inventory, if you have manufacturing. Like I said prior, Nav does support, it has a full robust inventory warehousing, products module, manufacturing module. We have a lot of clients that do government manufacturing, R&D type manufacturing, and so forth. So, Mike, if you want to send out that last poll.
Yep, we should have it up right now, and that what type of system requirements do you have currently would be interesting to see. Looks like we've got just about everything in now. Everybody's got timekeeping and general ledger requirements, and then about half of the group is looking at purchasing, inventory, and ERP type requirements. The other half, that's not a requirement, which I would expect. A service company, primarily services company, is not going to have inventory requirements, obviously. So,
okay, great.
Okay, we should see your screen again. That pretty much is a quick overview of the whole system, right, Bill?
Yeah, that's a very high-level overview. Anybody that wants a further deep dive, we can set up a separate time to go into specific modules,
right.
Get into more of the details of the system.
Right. No, I appreciate you taking the time to go over all that for us. That's very good, and it's very different from what we saw yesterday, which was the QuickBooks system, which was a little more of keeping a lot of different balls in the air, whereas this is all contained within one, and of course then you can export into other Microsoft products and very easily use that if you wanted to look at the data outside, but everything's contained within the one system, so a very different look than what we saw yesterday. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to entertain questions right now, but we've got a few minutes left here, and so I'll hang on for a few minutes and see if there's any questions. If not, I want to thank everybody for their time today. Appreciate you sitting in, and like Bill said, if you're interested in diving into this a little more detail or seeing how this might work or how it might work for you, please give me a call. or there's contact information there for PVBS as well, and we'd be happy to talk to you about that. And I don't see any further questions. I think maybe with that we'll say thank everybody for their time, and hopefully we'll see you again soon on another webinar session. So thanks everybody. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, guys. Have a great afternoon.